The first dredge bit into the shoreline of Lake Serene on a Tuesday. By Thursday they'd felled 200 of my family's pines. By month's end, the skeletal frames of 127 luxury vacation cabins formed a scar along the western ridge, a project greenlit by the very homeowners association I'd naively trusted. They saw a gold mine in tourist dollars. I saw the death of a sanctuary. They forgot one thing though, buried in the dusty covenants and state law. The lake wasn't just by my land. Its water, every drop, belonged to me. And I was about to turn off the tap. The Coleman family didn't own Lake Serene, not in the way you own a car or a house. What we owned was something older, more precise, and far more powerful: the senior pre-1914 water rights. Every gallon that filled its spring-fed basin, every cup that evaporated from its mirrored surface, was legally appurtenant to our 500-acre homestead, which cradled the lake's primary inlet and entire eastern shore. The lake access lots on the west side, where the new HOA had sprung up, had deeds that mentioned scenic enjoyment, but their water rights were junior, conditional, and subordinate to ours. It was a legal nuance my grandfather called the quiet whip. For generations we'd never had to crack it. I lived in the main lodge, a sprawling log structure built by my great-grandfather. My life was the whisper of pine, the call of loons, the ritual of checking the water gauge. The HOA, Serene Vista Estates, started small, a dozen homes for retirees seeking peace. I joined, paying dues for shared road maintenance. But a shift came with new board members, ambitious investors from Seattle and California. They saw a spreadsheet, not a sanctuary. The proposal for Serene Vista Cabins, a premier vacation rental community, dropped like a bomb at the annual meeting. "It's controlled growth, Michael," argued David Chase, the slick board president. "Revenue that will upgrade our infrastructure, increase all our property values." "You're building a small city," I said, my voice tight. "The septic load alone, the noise, the light pollution, the traffic. The lake's ecology can't handle it." "Environmental studies are favorable," said Susan Carter, a board member whose smile never reached her eyes. "And your property value will skyrocket." "I don't want that kind of value. This is my home. It was here before your lots were a timber company's ledger entry." The vote was a foregone conclusion. I was outnumbered by absentee owners dreaming of profit. The county, eager for tax revenue, rubber-stamped the permits. Construction began with brutal efficiency. The change was immediate and visceral. The constant thump of generators replaced bird song. Silt from the construction clouded the crystalline western shallows. One afternoon I found a family of otters, disoriented, fleeing across my land. The quiet whip began to stir in my mind. I hired Eleanor Vance, a water rights attorney whose reputation was as sharp as her suits. Her office in Spokane was lined with legal volumes. "They're relying on riparian access rights for their owners," she said, poring over my sheaf of antique documents. "But for 127 commercial rental units? That's not domestic use. They'll need to apply for new commercial water appropriations from the state for drinking, irrigation, sanitation. And look here," her finger tapped a clause in the HOA's own bylaws, "all common area improvements, including utility infrastructure, must be approved by a 2/3 supermajority if they impact the shared environmental resource." They started ground clearing before that vote. They jumped the gun. A plan, cold and meticulous, formed. So we hit them on two fronts. First, we enforce our seniority. Second, we challenge their authority to build the supporting infrastructure. Eleanor nodded. "It's a pincer movement. But be ready, Michael. This will get ugly." The first legal shot was a notice of diversion and call on the water. I formally called my water, demanding the state enforce my senior right. Since the lake was the source and my right was absolute for its natural flow and level, any junior usage harming that, like massive pumping for a cabin community, had to cease. The state water master, after reviewing the century-old paperwork, issued a preliminary injunction halting all HOA water withdrawals from the lake for the project. On the ground, it meant the construction trailers had no water. The dust control sprinklers went dry. But it was just a skirmish. David Chase came to my door, his composure cracked. "This is a stunt, Michael. You're hurting the whole community." "You created a new community the old one didn't ask for," I replied, leaning on the doorframe. "I'm just protecting what's mine by the oldest law on the books." "We'll drill wells," he hissed. "Applied for any permits yet?" I asked quietly. "The hydrological study will show your aquifer is fed by the lake. It's called a tributary groundwater source. My call extends there too. It'll be tied up in hearings for years." The second shot was the HOA bylaws lawsuit. I, as a member, sued the board for fiduciary overreach and violation of governing documents by commencing infrastructure work, the massive septic field and water pump station, without the proper supermajority vote. We sought an injunction on all construction pending a full membership vote. The HOA lawyered up aggressively. Their narrative in the local paper, the Pine Creek Gazette, painted me as a selfish hermit, obstructing progress and economic hope for the county. I got hate mail. My mailbox was vandalized. But I also got quiet notes of support from a few older residents who'd been bullied into silence. The courtroom was where Eleanor shone. She presented the HOA's own rushed invoices, showing excavation for the septic system began days before the board's allegedly authorizing vote. The board's attorneys sputtered about procedural timelines and implied consent. The judge, a stern woman with a reputation for respecting procedure, wasn't moved. "Your bylaws are a contract, Mr. Chase," she said. "You don't get to pour concrete first and ask permission later." She granted the injunction. Construction ground to a complete halt. 127 skeletons of cabins stood silent under the sun. The HOA's financial model was predicated on rapid completion and immediate rental income. The delays from the water call and the injunction bled them dry. Their investors got nervous. Then Eleanor played the masterstroke. She filed a derivative lawsuit on behalf of the HOA members against the board members personally, alleging gross negligence and wasting association funds on a legally dubious project that now exposed them to massive liabilities. The potential for personal financial ruin focused the mind wonderfully. One by one the board broke. Susan Carter resigned first. The others followed. In the emergency election, a slate of older residents, longtime lovers of the lake, won. Their first act was to request a sit-down. The new president, and retired engineer named Walter Briggs, sat on my porch with a sigh. "Mr. Coleman. Michael. We're here to surrender. This war is bankrupting everyone, spiritually and financially. What will it take to make it stop?" I looked past him to the lake, where the afternoon sun painted a path of gold over the water, marred only by the silent, gray frames on the far shore. "The project is dead," I said. "You rescind all permits permanently. You deed the developed land on the western ridge to my family trust as a conservation easement. We will dismantle the structures and restore the land. The HOA pays for the restoration, funded by a special assessment on the lots, the same lots that would have gained value from the cabins." Walter paled. "That's millions. People will lose their lots. They can sell them to me at a fair pre-cabin value," I said. "Or they can help pay to heal what was broken. Their choice. But the cabins go. All of them." It was a brutal term. But the alternative was a decade of litigation and a ghost town of half-built cabins collapsing into the lake. The HOA voted. It wasn't unanimous, but the two-thirds threshold was met. Fear and exhaustion are powerful motivators. The final hearing was anticlimactic. The water call was settled, my senior rights reaffirmed and inscribed with new permanence. The HOA's violations were adjudicated, the fines levied. The dismantling began the following spring. It was slower than the construction. We salvaged what we could, deconstructed rather than demolished. As the last roof came down, I stood with Walter Briggs, watching. "I never wanted to be a villain, Walter," I said, my voice thick. "You weren't," he said, surprising me. "You were the keel. This place was tipping into madness. You righted it. It'll just take us all a long time to admit it." The restoration took 3 years. We replanted native pines and firs, reintroduced shoreline plants, and let the land stitch itself back together. The scar faded, greened over. The otters returned. I sit on my porch now looking at the western ridge. It's wild again, a lush, unbroken line of green meeting the blue of the lake. You'd never know 127 cabins once stood there, poised to change everything. The quiet whip is back in its drawer, its power proven but, I hope, never needed again. The HOA still exists, but its covenants now have ironclad conservation clauses, and a seat at the table is permanently reserved for the Coleman water rights holder. The lake is serene once more. The fight cost me my anonymity, my peace of mind for a time, and a small fortune in legal fees. But it bought back the future. Sometimes you have to use the oldest law, you have to protect the oldest thing you love. The water remembers. And now so do they.